You know, I remember when I first started looking at satellite TV as an option for my RV and my house. There were a lot of things I didn't understand, especially when it came to a setup that's moved from place to place. But after reading hundreds of posts and articles and talking to other RVers, I felt like I was ready to have my system installed. Every day, I see a lot of RV owners are thinking of buying a satellite system, but they don't understand some of the basics. So, in this video, we're going to look at the fundamentals. I'm going to warn you that even though we're only going to be talking about the basic parts of a satellite system, it may get a tad bit technical in a few places. But hang in there. It'll be worth it. Let's get started by looking at the big picture. Satellites that provide TV signals orbit the Earth in what's called a geostationary orbit. What this means is that as the Earth moves, so do they. In fact, they orbit above the equator in a way that makes them appear to be stationary. So if you were able to point to the exact location of one of the satellites, and you never moved, you'd always be pointing at it even though both the Earth and the satellite are always moving. Satellite providers like Dish Network and DirecTV have broadcast centers that gather shows they buy from various networks and beam them up to their satellites. The satellites then beam the shows back down to Earth. The TV shows being sent back down to Earth use digital signals. That simply means that the entire picture you see and the sounds you hear come to you in a very long stream of ones and zeros. They're sent in a special order that requires a computer to decode them and then piece them together into the television shows that we watch. Unless you have the right equipment, you can't watch satellite TV. You need something to catch the signals and something else to decode all of that digital data that's in the signals. To catch the signals, you need a satellite dish. Once the dish is properly aimed to point to the right satellite, it can hear the signal and pass it along to a receiver, which will then decode the digital TV signal, reformat it into something that your TV understands, and then send it to your television. So there are really only three basic pieces of equipment you need to watch satellite TV: a satellite dish antenna, a receiver, and a television. Let's talk about the satellite dish antenna. Satellite dishes are made up of two basic parts: the dish itself and something called a feed horn that has a low noise block down converter on its end. Everyone calls these the LNBs or the LNBFs. The F stands for feed horn. The feed horn's job is to collect the signals reflecting off of the dish and point them to the LNB. However, LNBFs combine both the feed horn and LNB into one unit. When the satellite's radio signal comes down to Earth, it bounces off the dish, and because it's curved, it bounces off at an angle that hits the feed horn and the LNB. Satellite TV providers use more than one satellite to send signals. This means that your dish has to capture more than one signal if you want to get all of your channels. So the multiple signals hit the curved surface of the dish, and there are two or more LNBs, one for each satellite, pointed so that they catch the correct satellite signal. When an LNB gets its satellite signal, it amplifies it because it's pretty weak, and then it filters out any stray radio signals that aren't part of your programming and changes all of those very high frequency signals it received into lower frequency signals that are passed along a coax cable to your receiver. I'll show you a coax cable in a minute. Because of the alignment of the LNBs and the curvature of the dish antenna, they have to be precisely aligned or aimed to specific satellites. The antennas for Dish Network and DirecTV aren't the same. This means that satellite dishes are unique to a particular service provider and you can't interchange them. There are some exceptions to this, like Winegard's Road Trip and TrackVision dome dish antennas, which are capable of working with both providers. However, they may not work with the better receivers, and in the case of DirecTV, may not get high definition channels. When you set up a satellite dish, it obviously needs to be pointed at the correct satellites. If your dish has two or more LNBs, two of these, meaning it gets signals from 2 or more satellites. You usually have to point to one of them to get all, because all the LNBs and the curve of the dish will be preset to get the other ones. You usually aim for the center one. They'll be grouped close enough together so that small adjustments will allow you to receive them all. When pointing a satellite dish, there are 3 adjustments to make. The first adjustment is the skew. This aligns the LNBs with the satellites by turning the dish like it's a steering wheel. Skew adjustments aren't necessary with a single satellite or a single LNB dish. Elevation. This is where the dish points up or down. And azimuth. This is where the dish goes side to side or left to right. Now that the antenna has captured signals and they've been processed by the LNBs, they are sent along a coax cable to your receiver. The receiver decrypts and decodes the digital signals from the satellites and converts them into TV signals. Now there are 3 types of cables that basically come into the back of your receiver. There's power, there's a coax cable that runs to the satellite dish, and there's an HDMI cable to your TV. Now in the old days there were 2 audio cables that went out and 1 video, but nowadays there's an HDMI cable that is used for most TVs, and it carries both video and audio signals. There may be a 4th cable if your receiver talks to a unit that talks to other receivers remotely using your Wi-Fi wirelessly. In that case, there may be an Ethernet cable that goes out and connects to something that's like a router that talks to those other units. But those are the only cables that you should be expected to have at the back of your receiver. If you have an automatic antenna on your roof, there's another piece of equipment called an interface box. It powers the automatic antenna and provides the smarts needed to position it properly. There is 1 coax cable that runs from the antenna to the interface box and a separate cable that carries the signals directly to the receivers. Let's talk a little more about the receiver. The receiver has a lot of things to do. It converts the satellite signals to TV signals, processes commands from your remote control, downloads and displays a programming guide, and a lot more. A tuner in the receiver allows you to select a channel and watch it. If your receiver only has 1 tuner in it, then you can only watch 1 show at a time. That show can be shared to more than 1 TV, but still, it's only 1 show at a time. If your receiver includes a digital video recorder, or DVR, then it acts like a TV because in order to record the show, it must be tuned to it. So if you have a DVR with only a single tuner, you can't watch a show and record another at the same time because that's 2 shows at once, something a single tuner can't do. Having multiple tuners is a good thing because it allows you to do things like watch 1 show in the living room and another in a bedroom at the same time. If your receiver had 3 tuners, you could do that and still have a tuner free to record a 3rd show. Get the idea? So let's recap and add a few more tidbits. Satellite signals are captured by your satellite dish antenna. They bounce off of the dish and are captured and processed by the LNBs, which are on an arm facing the dish. The signals they capture are sent along a coax cable to your receiver. The receiver converts the signals to TV signals and sends them along an HDMI cable to your TV. If you have more than 1 TV and want to watch more than 1 show at a time, you'll need other receivers at those TVs. Each receiver will have the incoming coax from the satellite dish and will process signals and output to your TV using an HDMI cable. An example of this setup with Dish Network is when you have several 211Zs or Wally receivers. Some systems have 1 main receiver and 1 or more smaller ones. All of the smarts are in the main receiver, which communicates with the smaller ones using either coax cable or a wireless internet connection. For DirecTV, this can be done with a Genie and some mini Genies. For Dish Network, the equivalent setup uses a hopper and some Joeys. Wow, that's a lot to absorb in a few minutes, isn't it? Maybe I should make this into one of those sleep tapes so you can listen to it all night over and over again. I just hope that you know a little more now than you did when you pressed play. That about does it. Satellite 101, short and sweet. Until next time, safe travels.